Hi, friends. Welcome to Storytime with Mrs. French ABC. Come join me today as we read Nellie Nutgraf. This is book one. It's called A Hot Story. Nellie Nutgraf writes about the biggest stories in history. If history was mixed with folk tales, belly laughs, and exploding volcanoes. This book was written by Tom Engelberger and illustrated by Gillian Reed. Okay, friends, let's read about Nellie. Warning. Welcome to the least educational series of all time. Nellie Nutgraf is a newspaper reporter who covers the biggest stories in history. But it's not the history like they teach in school. It's a wacky version where everything happens at once, including a lot of things that didn't really happen. For example, Abraham Lincoln didn't really eat a pastrami sandwich while a volcano exploded. So don't turn that in for your homework or you'll get an F. This book is about Nellie's first story. A volcano explodes, Bigfoot is found, and an angry member of the royal family chases Ben Franklin around. Nellie is determined to get it all on the front page of the big city, big news. Will it be tough? Yes. Will it be dangerous? Yes. Will it be historically correct? Never. Chapter 1. Hi, I'm Paul Bunyan. You know, the giant lumberjack guy. Right, that's me. Please forgive me if you find a spelling error or two. I'm writing this down with a giant tree stuffed with coal. I was going to use a baby elephant for an eraser, but the darn thing just ran off to join the circus. I'm the one writing this story down because I know Nellie Nutgraf better than anybody. You've heard of me, Ben Franklin, Betsy Ross, John Henry, Harriet Tubman, George Washington, Molly Pitcher, and Bigfoot, right? Well, how do you think people heard about them in the first place? No, they didn't watch it on TV. They read all about it in a newspaper. And the woman who wrote most of them stories for the newspaper was Nellie Nutgraf, the double best reporter in history. She was the fastest, toughest, fairest, squarest, word flingingest reporter who ever lived. Any reporter can get both sides of a story. Nellie could get both sides at the same time. She'd write what one person was saying down with her right hand and what the other person was saying with her left hand, and all while typing up the finished story with her toes. She wrote stories about everything that ever happened. Her first story was her own birth announcement for the newspaper. She couldn't find paper, so she wrote it up on a diaper. I'd rather not tell you what she used to write it with. kind of gross. It went like this: Nutgraf born. Natasha and Fred Nutgraf are the proud parents of me, Nellie Nutgraf. Weight 6 pounds 11 ounces. Eyes blue, and dimples said to be adorable by several sources close to the maternity ward. Upon birth, the baby, me, was smacked on its behind by the doctor, to which the angry baby, me, replied, "This is an outrage. I don't cry easy, but I get mad quick. So watch out, people." But I didn't meet Nellie until much later, when she was just getting started with her first big job at the big city big news. So I guess the story better tell you is the one about how we met. Chapter 2. Now, even the double best reporter in history has to start somewhere. Nellie Nutgraf decided to start at the top. She walked right into the big city big news, the biggest paper in the country back then, and told them she wanted a job covering the biggest news they had. Amelia Earhart and the Civil War, movie stars and Louisiana Purchase, Elvis, Lucille Ball, and professional wrestling superstars. Whatever you want on the front page tomorrow, I'll go get out and get it today, she said, slinging her typewriter over one shoulder. Those stories are all taken, said Brian, the editor. But I could use somebody to cover little bitty unimportantville. This is an outrage, Nellie shouted. I want your biggest story. Well, said Brian, the editor, looking at his clipboard, it is the biggest story I have left. I'll do it, declared Nellie. They have a town hall meeting tonight. You better get up there, said Brian, the editor. It's your job to write about whatever happens in little bitty unimportantville. Does anything ever happen there? She asked. Nope, he said. But you've got to write about it anyway. We can't let the other paper, the New York Hustle Stuff, get a story that we missed ever. Even if it's a terrible, worthless, useless, and boring story. We can't let them get the scoop. So go get that story. Chapter 3. Nellie was determined to write the greatest story ever about little bitty unimportantville. She sharpened her pencil, opened a new notebook, and polished her typewriter. You folks do know about typewriters and ribbons, right? Just imagine a computer that doesn't compute and weighs as much as a large goat. And instead of a screen, it has a piece of paper. When you press a key, a metal bar whacks into an inky ribbon that leaves a mark on the paper. Hopefully, the mark looks like the letter you wanted to type. If not, rip out that paper and start all over again. Nellie put a fresh ribbon in her typewriter and used the old one to tie up her hair. Then she put on her best pair of blue jeans and her fanciest flannel shirt. She even cleaned the grime off her glasses, which she usually forgot to do. Then she called a taxi and rode out to little bitty Unimportantville. It was all the way on the top of Mount McMadge, and the horse pulling the taxi got tired, so the horse got in and Nellie got out and pulled it the rest of the way up the mountain. That's how badly she wanted to get the story. Because she was so much faster than the horse, she got there early. She ran into the town hall, which was also the high school gym. She sat in the front row and got ready to write down all the action. For the first hour, nothing happened other than the gym teacher pumping up basketballs. Finally, the town council members came in and set up a folding table under one of the basketball hoops, and the meeting got started. We've called this meeting to discuss our plans, to discuss holding a meeting, or for planning a discussion about meeting to make plans, said the gym teacher, who was also the mayor. Please limit your comments to half an hour each. Then everybody took turns a talking and a yammin' and a blatherin' and a wheezin' and a whinin' and a complaining and a boastin'. And Nellie fell asleep. She woke up when the mayor banged a gavel and said, "Meeting adjourned." Everybody left. Nellie looked down at her notebook. It was completely blank. The taxi had already left because the horse had a hot date back in the city, so Nellie had to walk all the way back to the office. While she walked, she thought about how badly she had blown it. It was morning by the time she got back to the office. In fact, now she was late for work on top of everything else. She opened the door and went in. Brian, the editor, was already there. She wondered what she should apologize for first. Either way, she knew that Brian, the editor, would fire her. She would never become the double best reporter in history. Unless, she thought hopefully, something else happened that's so big that they've forgotten all about my story. Like maybe a volcano is about to explode. "I can't talk now, Nellie," said Brian, the editor. "I'm on the phone with President Hoover. He says there's a volcano about to explode." "Where is the volcano, sir?" Brian, the editor, asked President Hoover. "Where? Mount McMatch, right under little bitty Unimportantville?" Brian, the editor, wanted to give the volcano story to Turbulsky. Hotshot Tobelski does all the biggest stories, he said. This is an outrage, said Nellie. Little bitty unimportantville is my beat. That means whatever happens there is my story. I guess you're right, said Brian, the editor. Hotshot Brolsky cried like a baby. You better hurry, said Brian, the editor. I am hurrying, said Nellie. Remember, it's spelled Volcano. Yep, said Nellie, carrying her typewriter out the door. And most importantly, said Brian, the editor, be careful. Sure, said Nellie, as she waved down a taxi. Remain a safe distance from the volcano at all times, called Brian, the editor. But Nellie didn't hear him. She was in the taxi and speeding toward the smoking, rumbling, lava-packed volcano. To be continued. Thank you, friends, for reading with me. Extra, extra. Nellie Nutgraf is, of course, not a real person, but she's particularly inspired by one. Nellie Bly was a courageous journalist in the late 1800s who traveled around the world as a reporter and set a speed record doing it. She can read more about her on Epic. In Nellie Bly and the Investigative Journalism for Kids by Ellen Mahoney. Nellie's last name, Nutgraf, comes from a term that reporters use. A nutgraf, pronounced nutgraf, is a paragraph near the top of the article that explains what the important news is. Unfortunately, not every reporter uses nutgrafs, leaving readers as confused as a squirrel searching for a missing nut. What sort of mess does Nellie get into? Find out in a Hot Story Part 2 of 3.
Hi friends, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications for when I post the next video. Until next time, bye!